I might leave midway through the meeting, but if I do, I'm still gonna connect via phone and at least listen.
If it's any consolation, I can't imagine this will be going on too long.
I would agree with you, Simon. This is pretty short. We actually might wind up essentially speed running a GSM here because I know our ISM speed run back when we did that was like a minute and something. So
I don't think it'll be that quick.
that's why I said we might.
Yeah, there's only 2 community issues, but they're decently contentious. They're not like airport rule changes or anything, but they're pretty contentious.
Isn't the assessment? Are we going through everything in the assessment, or what exactly?
That's an excellent question. If you want, it seems like there's a bit of disagreement, and I guess we could talk about that. But
I touched on what I think should happen in my comments.
Okay, well, we'll address those comments. Let me get Frumble TV set up here.
Okay.
and I'll get minutes set up too, since I need to do that.
Let's see here. Okay, Frumple TV's actually already been up for a couple minutes, so you can go ahead.
Okay.
Chief.
Cool. Cool. Well, this is the. I say this while I'm trying to type. Yeah, this is the April 2023 staff meeting. Happy Daylight Saving. Happy Easter for those celebrating. We only have a couple of topics on the agenda, so hopefully this is fairly quick. But knowing us and what happens when we're arguing about things like this,
Infrastructure strategy.
yeah, we'll see what happens. We're just kind of hanging out in the borehole, so if anyone is curious of where we're at, I'm just kind of zooming around the borehole. Okay, so first up, Simon, you want to do stuff with road registration.
Yeah, so I think we talked about it, I want to say in February now. I think it's been a couple of meetings. But effectively, I would like to, and as we discussed, make the rules around road designations clearer. I think at the minute there is a bit of a grey area between the short roads and actually how they are allocated the road numbers. So that's roads that are less than 500 blocks in length that are being registered as a B road. So I think for simplicity, we should change our approach and say that if you want a road with a formal B or A number, it has to be proposed to staff. And if you are just building a short up to 500 block road between your town and another town or another road, then you still can build it. It just will not receive a formal B road designation unless it is proposed to staff. This way we can much more simply actually track which numbers are going out. We can ensure that they're appropriately being given out. So if, for instance, you've got a 1 or a 2-digit road number, they are reserved for the more important roads in the region. And yeah, it just keeps everything organized, is my opinion.
I don't really want to die on this hill, so I understand if the rest of the staff wants to go with Simon's proposal as is for simplicity. But I still think that the roads under 500 should just go the request to staff if it's possible. And the rule can be changed so that you need the number from request to staff, but it won't have to go to proposals unless an inappropriate number got picked and there's some sort of controversy with it.
I think it then, if we were to go that route, it would just introduce more confusion. Actually, because it's a shorter distance, I'm putting it in request to staff versus proposals. I think it's simpler just to have one singular point of entry for all roads.
But on the
Yeah, and it's like, as long as you have like a map, that's like the only thing that really requires much work. And for like easy proposals and stuff like that, it tends to be rubber stampy anyway. And like, unless of course it takes like a 2-digit B road to connect to council or towns or whatever.
Go ahead, Skelly.
But on the other hand, I don't think a B road is ever going to be so urgent that it needs instant designation. So a proposal isn't going to be too much of a burden.
Yeah, I think it's simply, I get what you're trying to argue for, Skelly, because it seems like it's very unlikely that sort of request to get rejected. But I think for consistency's sake, like putting all road registrations through proposals, I think makes it easy for people to understand where to do it.
Yeah, I would agree with Simon on this one. I think the intent of the proposal is to simplify the whole process, and I think the simplest way to do it is to just say that it all goes into the proposals channel.
Yeah, let's just go with that.
Yeah, thankfully these are usually not all that controversial, so I'm not terribly worried about this, because the other drawback with using RTS is that you can run into a situation where it's approved by one staff member and then it turns out later that there's a problem, whereas with proposals it actually gets seen by more people. I don't think that that's going to be a big issue in this case, but I do think that it will at least make the process consistent.
Like if that staff member forgot that number is actually being used or something. Like,
yeah,
and it's an easy mistake to make.
And plus, we don't have to like measure it out. It's like, oh, it's 510 blocks. It needs to be proposed. It's like all B roads should be proposed. Full stop. To get an official number.
Looking at my statistics, it looks like we're averaging around 20 proposals a month or so. So it shouldn't add too much.
No.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it'd be relatively minor.
So it seems like we're all on the same page here.
Yeah. It seems like we're in agreement of approval of Simon's proposal then.
Approved as proposed.
Approved as proposed then. Okay, great. Thank you, Simon.
Okay.
And Vicky.
And here's the
not
second.
here to help you.
Yeah, AP is not here to help. Which AP did half of them essentially. Everything like numbered like 1 whatever to like 5-4 AP did. So as for like the specifics, I really can't talk about that half of the road lists. But essentially, for those unfamiliar, this topic is essentially retroactively applying the like road name guidelines, not really rules. It's not really formally written down based off the last rule, but like the guidelines to previous roads, and also kind of just clearing the junk, I guess. Which are a lot of roads, like more than a third of A roads and half of B roads are suggested to have some sort of change. A lot of them is just like changing the number to free up those 2-digit roads, but there's also like a lot of other stuff. Since we're also trying to kind of combine redundant roads, a good example of like roads that are like kind of redundant and just take up 2 numbers for whatever reason is B56 and B53. south of Fort Yax here, we're also kind of trying to reduce that sort of situation. Whereas like a road just changes number for like no reason, even though it serves like the same general corridor. The thing is, there are like complications in implementing a wide scale number change. The main thing is logistical. It's going to take a lot of work. A lot of these roads have their own signage, their own lines on Dynmap, their own wiki pages. And we would, if we are going to apply this in a reasonable manner and like consistent manner, this can't be like something that like 2 staff are just going to be tasked with and leave it at that. Like this needs to be some sort of wider effort. And of course, it's like, since B-roads, strictly speaking, according to the rules, are owned by the towns they go through when they're going through the towns, it is kind of a murky area rules-wise to change road names, not necessarily with the town's permission. Those are the main ones. And of course, there are objections that people might have to roads being changed, but I'll leave it at that.
I'm not going to go through my entire comments, but the big part of my comments is basically, I don't think we should work on implementing this, all of these right now. I think what we should do is give a month for people to dispute any changes that got proposed, because I can imagine there will be a lot of people who want to try to argue against changes that got proposed, and also take that month to try to organize who's doing what in the road renumbering effort. And then after that, all of the changes can be looked over and approved by staff at the May GSM, and then we can go forward from there.
One other thing I noticed on your comment, Skelly, is that the numbering system be explained on the website, and I definitely agree. Probably within like policies and procedures, maybe. Because this is not necessarily like a hard and fast rule. Just to say like, hey, don't use 2-digit numbers for no reason. Try to extend rather than just make a new road if there's another road that basically like extends off of it. Stuff like that.
So I'm looking at the spreadsheet now. Apologies, I don't think I've actually looked at this before the GSM. So the various categories. So what are your proposals in general for the categories? So for instance, decommissioning, that is, like, actually this shouldn't be an official road in the first place. So
yeah. So we probably put on 4 categories. One of them is none, which is it's fine as it is. Mm-hmm. We might have like a comment, but generally it's like, this is fine as it is. It's not worth going back and renumbering it. Some of them are like renumbered. Like once again, a large portion, and some people are definitely very guilty of this, is using 2-digit B roads, especially for small local connectors, rather than regional trunk roads, which is what I think we're generally going for with the 2-digit B roads. So that's renumbering. Also, there's a couple wrong ward numbers that are in there, so we're going to reassign those. There's also decommissioning, which varies. When we're combining roads, it's like it's decommission one or renumbering one of them. And me and AP might have like slightly different ways we did this, but that's generally. There are also a lot of intra-city roads. A good example is where is it? The B621, which is like Whiteley Boulevard, Whiteley and Quinns Avenue, in Whiteley, which is just completely intra-city, and we're removing that from roads like that from the system. Stuff like that, essentially. And then there's unfinished, which is roads that were proposed and approved, but were never really built. So we're just kind of purging those from the list, ones that it has been a very long time and they just have not been built.
So when you say unfinished, is that basically hasn't started, or could that be it's halfway done,
Yeah.
so it connects a couple of things?
It could have been given like a better name, but it's essentially more like it hasn't really been started.
Okay.
Or the progress is like really, really inactive.
I think
would imagine
my
that-
initial thoughts, which I'm happy to discuss, is that I am very happy for us to revoke the numbers of those that are unfinished. If that is that they have barely started, I'm happy for us to revoke the numbers of those that need decommissioning if it's not appropriate for them to have a number. I think in order to sort of take this as a bit of a phased approach, so we're not just approving 100 changes, which, as you say, is going to be quite laboursome, I would suggest that where it's just an actual renumbering and the road is finished, let's start with a limited set. So I would suggest, for where renumbering is necessary, let's only target single digit roads post this GSM. So I think if you've got an action against the B1, against the B2, so on and so forth, let's target those first of all. As Skelly said, you've got the full list publicised, so if people disagree on other roads, then they can. But I think that where we have identified problems with just those single-digit ones, that is fair for us to do, to reserve those for the pretty much the biggest trunk roads in those respective wards.
Anyone else have any comments?
I think as a broad concept, this makes a ton of sense. I think, as you were discussing it needs to be done in phases. Skelly, I think giving towns the opportunity to disagree with the recommendations, I think that's a valid thing that we should do. But otherwise, I think in general that the criteria that you've laid out so far, Vicky, that those make a ton of sense. Of that, if it's entirely within a city, or it very clearly has not been started, or the number's not a fit for the purpose of the road, then I think that's fine. As we kind of, once we kind of get that final list put together, then we'll be able to, I think, figure out. So like Dyn map, you would need to redo. Changing IDs is a little tricky, but you can change labels all you want. I don't know how easy it is to change a line ID. I haven't done it in a while. Wiki pages we would need to move and then deal with redirects. And then as you say, in towns, then we'd have to do that. But I think that this is something where even though the actual like road is managed by the town mayor within a town, I think that this is something where this is being done to clean up the system. And I think we would, I'm okay approving making changes to the roads, like updating signage along the roads itself. I think, it's up to the town mayors to update any wayfinding within their towns that's pointing to the roads, because that's going to be way too much work for us to try and do.
Yeah, kind of makes me wish that we were doing this in 1.20. Because in case if people don't know, they are adding being able to edit signs in 1.20, and that would make things a lot easier. But unfortunately, we're still on 1.19 and will be probably for the next several months.
I have to.
We also don't have to do this right now. This is an
Yeah.
internal project that we're just deciding we want to do. So there's no reason to do it in any particular time frame.
120 is coming in June, around there, right? So, given paper and all that, probably late summer. I don't know if people will have. I don't know if staff will have the capacity to do this sort of project at that point.
Yeah.
Sorry, I zoned out there. What's the benefit of waiting for 120 with this?
Editing
Sorry,
signs.
Sign renaming.
Oh, okay.
And I'm assuming corporate tech will support it and all
They
that. I would
better.
hope.
Yeah.
They better, otherwise it's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my availability for the next 6 weeks is insane in that it doesn't really exist. But towards the end of the summer, like I'll be a lot more around.
Yeah, my thing is I have like 2-3 weeks until finals, and so I'm like starting to like speed up on those projects. So it's like I won't really be available in the near term, and we could discuss this as a future GSM, most
Or
likely.
not, or just within the staff channel. I don't know if this necessarily has to be discussed in front of everybody.
I mean, I'd be very happy for the action of this GSM to be that we do intend to carry out these actions when staff availability allows, and that at least sets the precedent to town owners and road owners that need renumbering. That actually we are wanting to be serious about the designations, even though we're not doing anything now. It at least sets that precedent.
It at least puts them on notice, and I think since
And
we have
if someone wants to, it doesn't necessarily have to be a staff member. If anyone, conductors or any members want to help out with that project, then all the more for it.
Okay, so in the minutes, I'm starting to write down the action items. I hate that term.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, I've been a bit out of practice, honestly.
all good.
It's
All
okay.
good.
I still
Okay.
have a lot of open. There's still a few questions I have. So so regarding allowing people a chance to object or send appeals about roads that they don't, that like I think some people already submitted some in the forum channel. How are we going to do that? I think Skelly suggested some sort of Google form. Do we want to go that route, or do we want something else?
That might be the easiest. So one thing we would have to make clear that it wouldn't be a place to to voice like disagreements with like the rule itself, but rather just disagreements with how the road is under the rules we set out.
Yeah, I think that the purpose.
I
of
just
the
feel like
form
Google
is-
Form doesn't allow much of a back and forth though. Versus, is it beneficial putting something in Discord so we can put up different threads for each road?
Right,
So
but
at least there can be a discussion with the
yeah.
proposer.
have a separate kind of forum channel.
The one thing I'm not sure. I think some people have been implying that there's going to be a lot of roads, but I'm not sure how many. Like how many.
Yeah.
Like how much discussion is going to come out of this? If it's going to be a lot of specific roads, that's a lot of threads. That kind of feels like
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
think
if we want to discuss, if people are appealing and we're wanting to discuss it individually, there's going to need to be, well, it's either discussed in a very open forum or it is going to be threads.
Yeah, I think having like a Google form as sort of a baseline, and we could discuss it if it needs to be discussed, but just having a Google form as just like a baseline, because yeah, I could either see a lot of people request like a lot of people disputing changes, or like 2 or 3 people suggesting changes, which of course like would be like more than manageable.
I think I see what Simon's saying. It might be just easier to make a temporary forum channel, Discord forum channel.
Yeah.
We don't have to, that way we don't have to make, we don't have to spend time making the form. We just say, hey, here's a place, make your thread if you have objection, we'll discuss it openly, and then when we're done with it, we'll just put it in archives or something.
We'll just close the thread. Yeah.
All right, we could do that.
And
I do think it's worth stating the roads that are more immediately pressing for rename. So I'm still of the opinion that let's focus on the single digit A roads, single digit B roads, and those that you've suggested for decommissioning and that are unfinished.
I think probably 2-digit B roads. Once again, there are not
I'm
that
saying
many.
that I'm saying that can be done. I'm just saying let's phase this So just single digit. So we start off with a fairly few.
But
single
once
digits.
again, I think in our like initial thing, I think we could do 2-digit B roads.
Yeah, I
But
think
then
that's
I'm also saying all of the ones that you're flagging for decommissioning and that are unfinished.
So Simon, so you're essentially saying phase one is single or 1 or 2 digit A and B roads that are slated for decommission or renumber. Phase two is everything else.
So I'm
Is that
saying
accurate?
just single digits that need to be renumbered,
And
but then any road that is labeled as unfinished or labeled as decommissioning. As in
And-
they shouldn't be a road.
and I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree. I actually really disagree. I think we could handle at least 1 and 2-digit B roads. There's not that many
That
of
just
them.
seems like all of them, though, doesn't it?
No, there's way more than that. That needs to be. Well, there's like actually, there's a handful more. A lot of them is wrong wards, or a lot of them is, yeah. Actually, a lot of them are 2 digits, but I think that would still be fine.
So Simon, I'm still not sure. Why do you want to just do the single or double ones? Because I feel like that's not. I think a better categorization might be just all of the unfinished or the ones that should not have numbers, and then go on to, I guess I don't know what's in the middle, but I guess at the very end are the controversial roads, or the ones that require lots of sign changes or something, like the ones that probably will require a lot of work. Those can probably be at the last phase.
And another way you could break it out is just by ward. So like you could separate like this isn't like a final thing, but like one or like wards 1, 2, maybe 3 in like one phase, and like 4, 5, 6 in another, then 7, 8, 9.
But so the other thing that I'm thinking about with this is that we're just arguing about the like order in which we would review challenges, right? This has nothing to do necessarily with the order in which we're actually going to do this.
I thought we were. That was my understanding. Like,
Yeah, that's what I understood as well.
Okay.
I mean, we could like
Like-
do like all disputes at once, because once again, I could either see there being a lot or like a couple across like the entire list.
I see. My understanding is I see this as trying to get through the roads that are easy to deal with, or definitely aren't, just aren't supposed to have numbers, and then the harder ones will leave to later, and it's also giving more time for people to object and whatever, right? So.
Okay, so in that case, I think the color coding that's on here is probably a good way to indicate the approximate order, because if I'm looking at the unfinished, and then basically unfinished, then decommissioned, then renumbered, because the renumbers are going to be the ones that are going to take the most work. Obviously, the renumbers, it's going to depend on the length of the road, but it depends. But I think that the general order of operations, I think if we're talking about how we're going to actually do it, I would imagine that it's a lot simpler to fully remove a designation rather than to update one.
Yeah, I even think we could clump the unfinished and decommissionings together, since like unfinished, it's like, oh, this road hasn't been built. Yeah,
Right.
We're not doing this.
Right, then we just release the number. So, yeah, so I would think, I think that the order of operations would be that we'll open the channel for challenges on any road, but then, the first phase, we'll close that, whenever we start working on that first, continue if there are further stuff with the renumbers, and then once all of the decommissions and unfinished ones, once those are all dealt with, then we start figuring out how we want to divvy out the renumbers.
Okay. And then there's this sort of timeline. Because I do agree.
Right.
But I do think that would be just like a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
I think going back to an earlier point that Simon was, I think, starting to mention, we'll just want to make clear a couple things with this. So one is that, you're not disputing the rule change. You're disputing the action that is being proposed on your road. And like,
Basically, do you
know,
think your road has been incorrectly classified?
right, exactly. And also, I think we'll just want to make clear that you need to have an ownership interest in the road in order to dispute. I think that should go without saying, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know, but I think even without specifying, like most of them at least, there might be like a few people who are disputing like every road on the list, but like
Right. So I just want to get ahead of that and like, no, please only open a dispute if you have an ownership interest in the road. And that means either you built it or it passes through a town that you own.
right.
So in terms of timeline, I would think we'll open up the channel as soon as possible. From the next GSM, we will start to allow roads to be renumbered, and I would suggest that it has to be a staff member to redraw it on Dynmap, but I would be happy to take community proposals / requests. I don't know where it needs to sit, but if someone wants to take over a project to renumber and update the signage, wiki, so on and so forth, I'd be happy for anyone to propose it for really any road that we've flagged from. Give it a month.
Yeah, and I think at some point we're probably going to set up like a checklist. One thing I potentially thought of just now is potentially like opening up the floodgates to like change the like unfinished roads, like next GSM, May GSM, and then the decommissioning ones in June, and then the renumbering ones in July. That is a potential timeline. Since that'll give everyone plenty of time to figure out everything.
Also, as a bit of a community incentive to actually help out, I would say that we won't be reallocating numbers until the old road has been renumbered. So, for instance, if someone wants to do a fairly major road in Ward 2, but they can't call it the B2 because that's already allocated, well, actually, I think it's a good incentive for the community to want to renumber the old road if it means that at that point it frees it up for them.
Yeah, and I think we can make like probably like a public facing Google Doc or something with like a checklist, just to like keep track of what's been done, what needs to be done, and just generally how far we are through.
Okay, I'm just going to review through what I've written on the minutes here. So we're going to allow 1 month for people to submit appealed objections for specific road numbering changes. We're going to create a temporary Discord forum channel. I don't know what the name of it will be, but I'll figure it out.
I just created it.
Oh, okay, cool. And a reminder: players should only submit these appeals or objections if they are either the original builder of the road or the road goes through their town. They have to have some sort of stake in that road, just to avoid no one just putting all general comments all over the place. The general priority for renumbering is roads. We're going to start with the roads that are unfinished, and then the roads that are to be decommissioned. I'm a little confused. What does decommissioning mean? Like, what's the difference?
Basically, like make them like not a B road, but like don't like destroy them or whatever. Just like they don't have the number anymore.
Okay, so just removing the. Okay, that makes sense.
The actions between unfinished and decommissioning are largely going to be the same. It's just, I think, a reflection of decommissioned is this is a road that exists that connects places, but needs to lose its number. Whereas unfinished is it might be a stub or something that it's losing a number, but it also like because it's not really a road.
Yeah, like roads that are like in the decommissioning category like include like there's like this B610 in Deadbush, which is just within Deadbush. It's still a road. It exists. It is there. Like you could go follow it, but it's like it's it doesn't fit like it shouldn't be a B road basically.
Okay, understood. Okay, and then finally, after all that, then there'll be a general renumbering of the existing roads, depending on circumstances. The one last thing I have is I think Vicky mentioned the road numbering guidelines, adding them to policies procedures page. I think that's a good idea, but the thing is, who's going to write them?
I mean, I have like a good idea since I wrote them, but like somebody would have to like copy it in.
Yeah, I like an admin or myself can definitely put them in. Just it's more someone has to give us the text. So
Yeah, I can like write up like a quick thing, and it won't be that much, but I can like write up like a quick thing and then just give it to y'all, and you'll have to like paste it in. Because it's like I already have like a good idea in my head, considering I did half of these.
okay, that's okay. So I put that in minutes. That's the final thing I got. Is there anything else? I guess.
I don't
So
think
we've got the road updates. Yeah, we've got the road updates channel. That's all ready to go. I just put the link to the spreadsheet in the post guidelines. So hopefully, folks, if you when you go to create a post in here, then that'll show up. We're saying that we'll close this for challenges at the May GSM. Yes.
Well, not close it for
no.
challenges. I just think that at that point it's fair that we can start to take action if it hasn't been challenged.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
So the challenger is open through till when the road actually gets renumbers.
Cool. I'm just
Okay.
hopefully we're not missing people reading text. So Skelly just suggested like just run the numbering guidelines past the rest of staff, Vicky. And Foot's, I'm not sure what Foot's saying.
Yeah, nothing's getting demolished. Most
Correct.
likely.
Correct. This is just
The only thing that will be changing in game is signage to reflect new numbers.
Yeah, we're not. That's why I said that the actions between an unfinished and a decommission road, that they're going to be the same in terms of how we process it. It's just a reflection of the state of it. Yeah, no, of course we're not going to tear anything down.
Yeah, because it's like, for example, there's like a road in Whiteley that's like signed as a B road. It's like that'll stay, but like it'll just not be part of the B road network. It'll just be a B road. It'll just be a road in the town, basically.
Okay. Cool. I'm still very curious of how many appeals objections we're gonna get. I'm hoping it will be pretty low, but we'll see.
It's like, and I don't think, and I think like one thing to be clear is clarifying comments, like especially for like roads that are like like if you're just like talking about our comments, just don't put it on there. It'll clutter things, and we just like care about stuff that like you disagree with.
Okay. Channel is open.
Because I did like see some people just like not necessarily disputing stuff, but like just adding clarification, which we don't really necessarily need. Unless it's like part of a dispute.
Where's the channel, Chief? Where'd you put category?
I put it under
Staff meetings.
I put it under staff meetings. We could easily move it up to somewhere else if you guys think it's more appropriate somewhere else.
Here? That's weird.
Road updates, I see it.
Yeah, it's right
staff
for community
meetings.
issues.
I don't see
Below,
it.
below mod nominations.
Here, let me
Yeah, I don't see it.
shove it up to.
I saw it.
It shows you're in the channel, so.
Here, I shoved it up to the request section just because that's. That might be more appropriate.
I still don't see it.
Yeah,
Maybe you need to
guys need to clear your
restart Discord.
cache or
Yeah,
whatever.
might have to
Just reload your Discord.
Okay, we'll take Chief.
We'll do that after the meeting.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much else to talk about.
thanks all for coming along. Open up to community questions and such.
Actually, while we're waiting for questions, I'll just remind people, beta's on 1.19.4. I haven't seen very many people help test things on there. So please help test on there, because, you know, the faster you test it, the easier the more confident I can put 119.4 on main server. Also, another reminder, you can also link your Discord account with your Minecraft account now, if you do /Discord link in game. I think we got like 20% of the whole Discord, at least 20%. So we're getting close to like 100 people. I would like to see a bit more people do that. Pro, you can find the IP for beta in information channel.
Address technically, but I know that everyone who uses Minecraft says IP. But I'm like, it's technically not an IP address.
Don't see any questions here.
Okay.
Athena asks, so decommissioned B roads will not be touched, just re-signed or unsigned?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not getting rid of the actual roads. We're just removing the designation, if
Right.
appropriate.
Yeah, we're not destroying anything. We're just...
Yep.
Yeah.
London was trying to ask a question.
Ask again. Just repost again, London.
DNA asks, is there a way to change the Discord link message to indicate that you should message Discord SRV and not TacoBot?
I could look into that. I'm not the message. Yeah, I think the message that is shown is customizable, so I could look in the plugin and see if I could be very specific about that. Yeah. I think it does say Discord SRV, but I don't know.
London, too, for the other question, for clarification, are you talking about like a road that's like marked as like unfinished and like we like are planning on like removing, but like the road builder's inactive? Is that correct? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Well, once again, there are people whose towns will be affected. There are people with like other like sorts of interests in the road. But if the builder is inactive, of course, it's like either like they'll need to like come on to like have a dispute or just something else. Is there any other questions?
Seems like we have the sound of silence.
Not seeing any, so I think we can call that done.
I'm over by the axolotls, so all I hear is axolotls, so I think we're good.
Okay. All right, that's the meeting done. Thank you, everybody. Next meeting will be on Saturday, May 13th. Conductor applications and moderator nominations are due on May 6th.
I know.
That
That's all.
was
Thanks.
that was 40 minutes.